Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we get our first official introduction to Pamela Isley in this continuity. Obviously, no green. I wonder, is that going to be something that happens to her later on, or are they going to choose not to go down that route? Because even Gotham, didn't fully go down that route. I can't remember. I think they did. Did they ever do that eventually? It's been a while. I don't remember if they did that final season. I don't think so. I think she just stayed, I don't think she ever went full green. So, I don't know if that's going to be something they'll eventually lead up to, or that's just aesthetically not what they're going to go with. Not like it matters, but still, it's just interesting. I do like that it does complicate things, though. The fact is that it's obviously, we get a look 10 years back where we got our introduction to Pamela, but also Renee. Renee had her in her sights. She's with her partner, and I guess this is back when she was kind of like a beat cop. But it's she couldn't take the shot when the time happened, when the time came, and she ended up shoving a plant through Renee's partner. Luckily, he didn't die, but he needs a new kidney. But she justified by being giving her a flower, being this is kind of asking for forgiveness. It's no, he was going to shoot me. He was yeah, he was going to shoot you because I couldn't. The fact is, I'm a cop. I'm supposed to uphold a certain decorum of the rules and the laws, and I'm actively not taking down my girlfriend who's actively essentially an eco-terrorist, doing a lot of terrible stuff, but like she always does, Pamela's justifying what she does is for the greater good. I'm fighting and I think it's interesting because I guess there's a parallel she's creating between her and the plants, because she says she was someone who never stood up for herself, and now she has the power to, and also the power to stand up for those who can't speak for themselves. She speaks for Mother Nature, she speaks for the planet, and she's and even Renee's really, are you doing all this just for Mother Nature? And for Pamela, she could tell she took offense from that. It's just don't be so disrespectful. This is, Mother Nature, plant life has just as much meaning. It needs to live just as much as any other being. They deserve to live just as much as a human type of thing. And just, to be very true to who Poison Ivy is through and through. And now Renee's caught between two lines of right, her duties as a cop and doing the right thing of taking Pamela down, plus love. And that's always a complicated thing. And she even talks about it later on. Obviously you have all these logical aspects of yourself that you're just right. But she was right, I had this feeling that she's nearby, there are just some things that science can't fully explain. Yes, you can explain away love by being it's this chemical thing, yada, yada, yada. But there's just certain things that are just the human side of things, the emotional side of things, which I think that's what makes, I guess, truth be told, I was about to say it makes Renee the biggest hypocrite the entire time. But I guess, truth be told, is she was always following her heart the entire time. It's just the fact is that she was getting on, Ryan's case about the whole Mary thing of right, you got to choose a side, you got to pick a side, you have to make the hard-hitting choices because Ryan hasn't made the hard-hitting choices. She didn't take Marcus down when she should have. Now he's a psychopath running Wayne Enterprises. Didn't take Mary down, and now Mary's kicking it with another sociopath, Alice, and now it's they're running amok and doing their thing. So it's you're kind of 3 for 3 in this, so you need to make some hard choices and make some decisions. It's also that's the the lane that comes with the superhero side of things. So could we find out what Batman actually did to Pamela? He basically used a serum to basically decay her, and they talked about it before, but now we've actually get to see it. It's very much not decaying, desiccating. It's very much like vampires in the Vampire Diaries, their desiccation. It's very similar. Whenever one of the originals gets stabbed with a dagger and they're in a desiccation state. Very similar. Renee's choice back then she sold her soul to Batman. Is kind of how she justified it. So Batman locked her away, made sure she gets no sunlight, no water, because even the smallest drop will be enough to revitalize her. So she had to be locked away. And Batman's the only one who knows this truth. But Ryan's not too keen on the thought of doing that to Mary, because it's like, no. Like, we can't do that. We're trying to save her, right? Because it's already like Ryan feels like she already failed Mary in other capacities of like, we weren't there for her. Like, we're trying to save her. We do this. We don't know what this is going to do, push her over the edge. But it's like, right, we have to have a hard stance. This is a tough love thing. We do this because it's how we save Mary. So she's kind of outvoted. Renee votes for it. Sophie votes for it. And so does, Luke. So she's kind of reluctantly has to do this. So it's like, right. And the moment they drop Bruce's name, I'm like, wait, you're just casually dropping Bruce's? I guess Montoya must know or something like that. And I love that she's like, wait, I've been a detective for 8 years. Wait, you're telling me that Bruce Wayne was Batman? I was like, oh, she didn't know. Okay. I love how we're casually, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. Bruce disappeared like over 3 years ago, so, and he's not active as Batman, and it's not like that information is going to do anything right now when no one knows where he is. So, I mean, that's the whole process of like Kate kind of looking for him. So I guess it's like, you know, but I guess like the last thing well, to be fair, she already has all your information, so I guess they just assume, well, if you know about us, they probably just assumed Alice was going to rat out her cousin, but I guess she didn't bother ratting out her cousin. I guess it's like, right, she's only trying to screw over the current Bat team. Who cares about past Bat teams? So I also do love that it's like, right, they are without the Bat Cave, so they are pretty low grade right now. It's like, right, with all this happening, they don't have access to everything, and just like Luke is kind of screwed on the technical front. He can do a little here and there, but still, it's not much. But they have to find a way, sneak back into Wayne Enterprises so they can get access to the Batcave, so they can get access to Bruce's journals and find out. So, but obviously, Renee, Sophie, and Ryan have the complicated situation of like, yeah, there's a whole thing of like Sophie sleeping with, because the last thing that needs to be found, because I was wondering whether or not everything had been found. Like, they hadn't really talked about it, but it's like, it seems like this is the last thing, because Ryan's like, right, once we're done with this, you're going to keep my name and Batwoman's name out your mouth, but it's like, no, there's still the Joker buzzer. And it's like, it's interesting that would be the last trophy, huh? Especially with this whole Joker-esque thing they're doing with Marcus, too. So I was like, oh, that's very befitting. First and foremost, they had to find a way into the party, especially because Marcus was having one. And he's talking about, you know, obviously all that his sister did to betray him. And it's like, right, you're going to put me on ice, but now I've never felt more alive. Now he's got his eyes set on Gotham, so he's throwing a big party, but it turns out it's kind of a sociopath-like job interview. So he's putting people up to a thing of like, kind of like I thought it was like a full-blown lie detector. I don't think it is. I think it's just like, right, you don't give him the answer he wants, he electrocutes you, which, once again, very Joker-esque. It's just like a more modified version and a bigger version of the buzzer, essentially. So, I did like the whole cards motif, which I was like, oh, that's interesting, because like, well, you are like the Joker, and it is a deck of in the cards, and so it's a motif that like fits and stuff like that. But I'm also like, well, we know there's also, because we saw them in the Flash, there is a metahuman team that's kind of got the cards aesthetic already down. So I just think that's interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it in retrospect, like, aren't they, like, I might have said something at the time in the during the Flash, maybe not. Aren't those Batman villains? Because aren't they a future gang in Batman Beyond? Like, I have not seen Batman Beyond in so many years, probably since I was in maybe middle school, high school might have been the last time I watched it. So I don't, but I feel like I remember some bad guys in Batman Beyond having that. Like I said, I might have mentioned this at the time of the Flash. I don't think they were metahumans. Maybe they were. I think they were just like regular, like just skilled criminals, and that was their whole motif. I love that, like, not everyone was all about it. The moment that one guy got electrocuted, everyone was like, and it's like, oh, who's the next card in the deck? And everyone's like, nobody's son. Luckily, Ryan stepped up because she needed to get a retinal scan from Marcus so that they could sneak in. But I also love that it's like, yeah, like Luke is going off about like, yeah, I have complete access to their security system. Sophie just got Marcus's fingerprint. It seems like we're just kind of waiting on you, Ryan, to do your part. So luckily she got that and they bailed. And, you know, Renee is with Sophie and Ryan, and once again, it's just that awkward situation. Like, cool, we're on the elevator, and it's like, does she really need to be here? It's like, well, if there's something in the journal about Pamela, maybe she'd be the only one that could really give us some insight, because she knew Pamela so well. obviously Renee's talking about like, right, she's just like, I'm just trying to do the right thing here, and just like Ryan's just kind of reluctant because it's like, I don't know, especially because it's like, really, you trying to do the right thing, considering like this is the same woman that's blackmailing us, the same woman you slept with. Let's not forget, you sleeping with the woman who's blackmailing me, so that's cool. But also, as right, we need Alice's help to find the buzzer. But oh, how did Alice get away? Oh yeah, Sophie. How did that happen? So it's like, yeah. So awkward situations all around. They do read the journals, and we do find out apparently like Pamela's big plan, at least back then, was going to be related to a dam. I guess she was going to flood. She was going to flood in some shape or form. She was going to flood Gotham. But that's around the time Renee stopped her back then when she joined with Batman. Because it's like, right, she wanted to be with... she's like, I want to be with you, Renee, but I need you to trust me that I know what I'm doing. I'm like, I don't think you do. Because it's like, because even Renee was like, you're going to be wiping out major neighborhoods. You know, it's either flood multiple neighborhoods or be with me. And she kind of wanted both. And so Renee made her choice because it was like the only way to save lives. And obviously they couldn't think of like, right, so the journals didn't really say where Bruce put her, but it's like, right, where would he have put it? It had to be someone like, you know, and Sophie brings up a good point. It's like, right, we're on, Gotham is an island, so where could he put her? And then ultimately Ryan turns around and there's that, like, the wood or whatever that's like in the center. I was like, no way. And it's like, well, yeah, it makes sense. Best place to keep her is close enough that you have easy access to it at any moment's notice. Plus, it's like, right, who would you trust with her more than anyone else? Because you can't trust her in the other facility that she won't get access to what she needs. And lo and behold, here we are. I'm like, that's interesting and kind of creepy to know. Cool, Pamela's been under here for the past 10 years. That's actually kind of like messed up. I mean, to be fair, it's like, well, it actually makes sense too, because, well, what else has Batman kept in the Batcave? The Bat Trophy, the villain trophy. So it's kind of like, yeah. So I guess it shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but it's kind of crazy. Because like I said, that's always been there in the middle, but I guess that's what it's also... Because isn't that where, if I'm not mistaken, that spot in the center is also where Kate originally found the bat suit. Or at least that's where she kept... No, it was where she kept it during the Elseworlds, because I don't think they set up the Glide. Once again, it's probably one of those little continuity things that they changed when it actually came to the show itself, Batwoman, because obviously it hadn't been done. Show hadn't been done yet, because Elseworlds was obviously her introduction. But I'm curious, like, was that supposed... I don't know, maybe that's like a decision they made recently. Maybe that wasn't always in the back of like the writers or whatever creators' minds. I just think that's kind of interesting. So they end up going down below. I actually like the whole, like, this would be a cool opportunity to have a super on your side, but it's like, no, Ryan's got this covered. She activates like the like hearing on the suit so that she can differentiate and find some way to find where exactly Pamela was. And I love that Sophie's phone went off and she's like, oh, like, there was something about a credit card. And I was like, the fact is they did that, I was like, that wasn't just some throwaway line. I was like, that's probably related to Alice. I figured as much, because we know Mary and Alice, like, we're running into a money issue, which I think it's funny. I'm like, well, because it turns out it's because Ryan blocked all her cars. But I was like, you guys are criminals. Like, I can't believe you... I mean, I guess this is your money, but I thought you would have, like, you are criminals, so I thought... But I guess it's like, right, if you go out doing all this criminal stuff, then Ryan's going to be all up in your grill. So it's like, as long as you're not doing that, I guess that was the justification. Because I'm like, I expect you to be robbing places, so... I just thought that was interesting, because her motivations aren't the same thing as Pamela. Pamela's was all about like fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. She cared about plant life more than anything. Whereas Mary's just more so about, you know, she almost a parallel to Pamela, like, is sticking up for herself, like to show like, right, I'm not just someone you can ignore, because that was the whole point. Like, now, you guys couldn't give me the time of day, but now that I'm kind of in my own lane doing my own thing, now you guys are so obsessed with me, like, making sure I can't use my own money and yada, 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 you know? So I think that's interesting. I think that is a kind of... I think it's just a thing in both of those characters wanting to feel powerful when they felt powerless to some extent beforehand. But ultimately, they do find Pamela, and they are able to get the serum out of her. At first I was like, would pulling some of that serum out of her be a good idea? I mean, it has been 10 years. I didn't know if like that would be taking the last, but I guess it's like, right, as it's in her system, it's just been multiplying over the years. I'm just surprised it never, but I guess because she's in the state that she's in, there's no way for it to kind of exit her body, because I guess her body's almost like basically in a stasis of sorts, so there's no way for it to ever get flushed out of her system. Because I was worried, like, oh, you want me to take that out? Won't that lessen it in her body? But like, it's probably multiplied so much, especially over these 10 years, that's just constantly flowing through her system that there's no. But I guess it's like, right, like, you just needed that little bit. It doesn't. Removing the serum desiccated her, so there's no like worry about, even if you removed, even if that's all there is to it, because that's just what's left in her system. There's nothing flowing through her enough for her heart to keep beating and not die, of course, but nothing to like fully reanimate her. That's why they're like, yeah, don't like get any moisture near her. Don't even sneeze. And I was like, is it really a good idea to like, leave Renee down there? But I'm like, because I figured like when the time came, Renee would like hesitate, like, and let Pamela go because she was going to do something, especially when she ends up kissing Pamela. I was like, that's not, I was like, don't do that. You know, I was like, oh, but as we find out later on, that was part of the plan because Sophie left, which I was like, don't do that. But it's like, right, you thought you could trust Renee, but she tracks down Alice, and I was like, oh, I wanted you to find out about Renee being a liar. And it's like, says the liar. It's like, yes, but I don't like the fact is that she lied, because now it makes sense. Alice was like, right, you were loitering it over my head like you were actually going to help me, because that's why Alice worked with her in the first place. That's why she turned on the Bat Team, because it's like, right, I thought you were going to actually help me get away at the end of it. It's like, no, you were never going to keep your promises to me or the Bat Team. So it's like, right, enemy of my enemy is a semi-ally against this enemy that's a liar. You know, at least the Bat Team is up front, well, to some extent, because obviously Ryan's lied to Alice in the past as well, but still. So she points Sophie in the right direction, and we find out she's had the buzzer the entire time. She was always going to loiter this over their head, because I was like, how long? Wait, why was she stringing this along? What was she? Oh, just so she could get to Pamela. That kind of lends itself to the hypocrisy a little bit about how it's like, oh, you can't, like, I tried so hard to believe that I could save Mary. That I could save Pamela, but no, like, they're kind of too far gone, and it's, you know, what Pamela did and what Mary's doing isn't just them, there's something else. Obviously, this infection is kind of what's changing them into something else, this poison ivy side of things. And she's trying to basically saying, like, you have to make that choice of saving the public over saving Mary, which, once again, is it really hypocrisy considering it's hypocrisy because, like, she backed down on what she believed all those years ago. She saw this as an opportunity. Like, I wonder, she's probably been searching for Pamela for the past 10 years, but probably no matter how much she played it with Batman, there was probably no way of ever getting him to, like, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't let you know where Pamela is. 2, which is also interesting considering, like, well, we don't know what they're, I think I know they've referenced it in Titans. I don't know if they've referenced, I don't remember if they've referenced it in this continuity, the whole him and Selena thing. Because if so, that's an interesting pair. Like, I'm trying to, do let me know in the comments down below. I don't remember if they've referenced Selena Kyle in this continuity or not. Especially like her and Bruce thing. I feel like I might be thinking it, but I'm also like, that might be a Titans thing I'm thinking. I might be, because that's so fresh in my mind, that might be what I'm thinking of and not this continuity. They might not have ever referenced Selena Kyle, or they might have. I don't remember off the top of my head. I feel like they did. Do let me know in the comments down below to refresh my memory. But that's also a thing too of, like, right, being in love with kind of a complicated character. So, but the point is that I'm making is just like, is it real? The point I was making was, like, was it really hypocrisy? Because she's probably been feeling like this way for the past 10 years and has just been looking for an opportunity. And this whole thing presented an opportunity for her to get, she needed someone's help. Now, whether it was going to be Alice or whether it was going to be Batwoman or was it them together, was going to help her find her soulmate, the love of her life. And I wonder, did something Sophie at the end say, maybe she was still back and forth conflicted. She just wanted to find Pamela, but maybe it wasn't until Sophie said what she said of, like, no, you can, you know, get forgiveness from Pamela, not poison ivy. Maybe that's what shifted her mind in that moment. I don't know. Who knows, like, what her plan was the entire time. Cause yeah, she could have manipulated them to find Pam, but that could have been like a thing of, she always plan on hijacking her? You would think so, considering she went through the trouble of hiding the buzzer, and she was going to keep going and keep this going forever until she found Pamela. But it doesn't. We don't know what her end result could have been. I'm leaning towards like this was probably always part of the plan, but it still leaves room open to be like maybe she was still conflicted, just like she was back then. But maybe not, because she made her choice back then, which was to choose doing the being a police officer. Because even now she's like, if I could take it back, I'd give up being a police officer to choose you. And now she has the opportunity. She's choosing. I mean, especially because like where her career ended up anyway, so it's kind of like, what was the point? I sacrificed the love of my life, and I think that's probably what sent her spiraling to some extent. It's just like knowing her soulmate was out there, and just she couldn't be with her. At the same time, Mary showed up and introduced herself again to Marcus, but it's like, right, I'm not with Ryan and them. In fact, I'm going to show you that I'm so not with them. I want her out of my business. So I'm going to tell you the truth about her and Luke. And so puts him on the spot by making it so that it's like, right, now he knows about Luke and Ryan. And ultimately Ryan confronts Mary, and Mary's like, right, are you really going to do this? Because you don't know what the chemical compounder that is, like what kind of effect, the half-life of it. You don't know what kind of effect it's going to have on me in the long run. But obviously for Ryan, it's like, I need to do this. This is my only way to save you. And to see that moment, to see like Mary terrified like that, because it's like, right, she likes who she is now, and she's scared, I think, of losing it in that moment. I mean, also because, once again, she doesn't know what the after effect is going to be. It's like, right. But Marcus showed up. But I love that line of like, right, everyone like says like, why did that happen to me back then with the Joker thing? But he's like, right, the Joker had Batman and Batwoman has me, so it's like, yeah, once again, the parallel they've already set up. So I do like that. It's almost like a reciprocal thing of just like the Bat and Joker will always have those ties, just like the Bats and Supers will always typically end up having some ties in some certain regards. So I think that's just interesting. But, ultimately, she uses the serum on Marcus, and so Mary's able to get away. But the problem is, like, cool, Marcus, we need to make sure he survives, but the problem is, if he does, he will blab our identities to the world, so Batwoman calls Jay to be like, you want to cure your son, you need to do it now, and will she be able to? I doubt this solution is going to get, like, solved just like that. I'm sure it's still going to be a budding issue, but now you also have Mary being like, right. I thought it was interesting how hurt she was by it, because it's like, right in that moment, I thought it was like, oh, you're going to talk about being scared because you thought you were going to get cured, but it's like, no, she's like, there's a part of her, she's like, there's some part of me that wanted Ryan to see me as a threat. Like, now she doesn't look like Mary took it as like, right, Marcus was seen more as a threat. Now, whether it was to protect their identities or to save Luke, I don't know, but it just seemed like I wasn't even on her mind of like, oh, like, I'm going to just let you go. It's just like, no, she had to prioritize saving, like, it was the only option she had at the moment, it was like, it was the only way to make sure everyone was okay, like, it's the only option she had at the moment, she had to act quickly. But like, I think the plant side of things is taking a lot of Mary's insecurities and using them against her and making her like fall deeper and deeper down this well of just kind of this poison, taking over. And I think it's interesting because Alice kind of points out like, hey, like, you remember my episodes where I would see stuff and hear stuff like, oh, like my dad's letters or seeing Sophie naked, walking in on Sophie naked in the shower. It's like, that did happen. She's almost like, huh, interesting. I was almost halfway expecting her to comment like, oh, wow, Sophie's got a nice body. I thought she was going to comment on something like that. But it's like, no. The fact is that she was just like, oh, well, regardless, I haven't had any episodes since being around you. If that's not power, I don't know what is. And to have Mary kind of like crying in her arms like that, it's like, yeah. Weirdly enough, she's had a sister relationship that she hasn't really had in a long time, because it's like, right, her and Kate have always been at odds for so long. She's had her issues with Kate and obviously everything over the course of the story. But now it's like, oh, like despite her and Mary having their issues, it's like, oh, we came together, like we're both different and we understand each other. So once again, I'm curious to see in the long run whether or not Alice is going to have change of heart because she sees what's happened to Mary and feels bad or something, because it's like, oh, maybe Mary's going to go too far. Who knows? Because Poison Ivy stepped back on the board. Now, granted, I know Renee's like, no, I'm going to save you. I'm going to choose you this time. We're going to find a way to cure you. Like, I'm going to lean into, I'm going to protect you. I'm not going to let Poison Ivy have a way. I'm going to save Pamela. We're going to beat you. But it's like, no, that's immediately going to blow up in your face. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where that takes us. There's just so many moving pieces. Once again, I doubt we're done with this Marcus thing. Like, they'll probably cure him from the desiccation, but he'll be back pissed off, hotter than ever, like mad and crazy. So just a lot happening all at once. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this ultimately all plays out, taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet. Really quickly too, like, I know this is just something that was in the back of my mind. When they were actually fighting in the main office, well, now Marcus's office, I was like, that bat that Renee got, I was like, that's not like a Harley Quinn bat or something, right? I was like, I mean, he is kind of obsessed with the Joker, so he would get like something related to, but it could just be a baseball bat. Like, but that's just my thing. I'm like, if I see a baseball bat, I'm like, is that supposed to be Harley's baseball bat? Like a signature bat? I don't know. That's what immediately crossed my mind. I don't know. But if anyone's going to have any, like, paraphernalia related to the Joker, it would be Marcus, wouldn't it? But, you know, that's probably, once again, just me overthinking. It's just like, it was something that crossed my mind when I saw the scene and I almost forgot to talk about. But it was just something in the back of my mind. I'm probably most likely overthinking. But regardless. Really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.